Welcome to the Mental Stealth Podcast. I'm your host, Tabletop Phoenix, and yes, I did name myself after a mythological bird that dies dramatically and comes back. Make of that what you will. This show explores the space between tabletop role-playing games, mental health creativity, and the deeply human need to pretend to be someone else for a few hours. For me, games are therapy. Not in the clinical, bill your insurance kind of way, but the deeply human way stories help us process what we're carrying. Whether that resonates with you immediately or makes you slightly nervous, you're probably in the right place. So get comfortable, grab your dice, and get ready. Wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, you're welcome at this table. For the first episode, I needed a guest with real authority on the subject, someone with intimate knowledge of Project Rollplay, someone whose perspective couldn't be replicated. Let's put our hands together and give a warm welcome to me.
Kind of a pretentious intro, don't you think?
You're welcome to host the next interview after you get a haircut. All right. What is Project Roleplay? And don't say it's a community because everything's a community nowadays. Even my local gas station has a Discord.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know, probably.
Okay.
Let's think of it like a creative sanctuary where people play games like D&D, DC-20, and Daggerheart to help their mental health. While it's not a replacement for therapy, it is a great way for individuals to tell stories and go on imaginary adventures together as a way to work through things like stress and anxiety. Really what it does is it turns tabletop gaming into a practical learn-through-play tool for healing, giving everyone a safe space to roleplay new social skills or simply to escape stress of everyday life through collective imagination. Okay, that makes sense, but how does deciding to swing an axe at a goblin translate into feeling less anxious at their desk on Monday morning, for example? Or that's a common misconception of what TTRPGs really are. I mean, it's far more than simply swinging an axe or a sword at a monster.
Fair.
It's about the role play, the connections, the mysteries. In a long-term campaign, parts of yourself start to bleed into your character. You can really learn a lot about yourself through your characters.
Yeah, it's true.
But yes, combat can be a large part of, many campaigns, and some players really thrive on it. Now, are you not worried about just creating a bunch of murder hobos? I mean, if that's what they need. There are literal break rooms that you can go to and just smash things to get your, anger out there. People start boxing to let out their aggression too. Sometimes people need an outlet to avoid doing, these things in real life. Unlike break rooms and combat athletes, though, these are just stories. It's all imagination. It's all in your head.
Yeah, it's true.
But luckily, in my 15 plus years of, being a dungeon master, I haven't had a single murder hobo yet in any of my campaigns or one-shots, so I guess I've been pretty lucky. Yeah, that is pretty lucky. Where did this actually come from? And I want the real answer, not the polished one. What was the moment or the slow burn that made you think, I need to build a whole thing around this? Well, it started when I was working at as a youth leader at a local community center. We ended up splitting the group, like all the kids, into two groups. I was with the boys while the girls went off and did their own thing. We ended up going to the park and just talking about our summer so far. Basically, discussing the things we were enjoying about summer, the things we were hoping to do. And then one of the kids started talking about how he was hoping to play more D&D, but didn't have a dungeon master. And I happened to mention that I play D&D as well, and, I'm also a dungeon master. And suddenly I had everyone's attention. And for the next, I don't know how long, the discussion just turned into, just everything about D&D, like the things we like about playing the game. And even the kids that have never played D&D before, they were rapt. Like, they were all so interested in this whole ideal of, playing this dragonborn or playing, an elf or whatever, and casting magic, swinging a sword, whatever. They were just so intrigued with this, that I was like, you know what?
Mhm.
I'm going to create a one shot for you guys. And so I did. I put together a one shot, and it was a lot of fun. Sitting down with them and putting their characters together, coming up with ideas of things they would enjoy playing, and it was chaos. I will tell you that like 8, 9, 10-year-olds, they're just little chaos gremlins. They do things that that's just fun and crazy.
so
and the group ranged from like 8 to 18, I think it was. It was a lot of fun though. We had a great time. Something pretty telling about the fact that your response to having a meaningful idea was to immediately turn it into a project. Most people would write it in their journal and forget about it. What made this feel urgent to you? I don't know that it felt urgent or even meaningful at the time, to be honest. I mean, they seemed to have a lot of fun, and I just wanted to give them more of that, right? But I also understood the challenge before me. Presenting a program for a game wouldn't be enough. It had to include learning, it had to include growth. And I had a much bigger uphill climb than I expected. Presenting a learn through play program using Dungeons and Dragons wouldn't be enough.
Right.
It was a Christian youth center after all, and I was well aware of the negative connotation that D&D has in certain Christian circles. And, presenting this to older Christians, I knew it was going to be a challenge. I completely removed the warlock.
Makes sense.
Having a patron, I knew that idea just wouldn't fly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't allow any evil characters whatsoever. Not that I normally do.
Yeah.
I had an evil campaign once, and I did not enjoy it. But I really had to strip it down to be acceptable while trying to keep it as fun as possible.
And that works?
Oh, gosh, no. It was immediately rejected.
Yeah, I believe that. That must have been disheartening.
I mean, actually, not really, no. It was kind of like my Thanos moment. Fine, I'll do it myself,
Yeah.
I created a private campaign after that for some of the older kids in the program. And, from that, Project Roleplay was born.
What was the impact that Project Roleplay had on them?
Well, just to give you a couple of quick examples, one of them was extremely quiet and shy. He had just moved to the area. He didn't really know too many people, and he was very shy. And over time, he learned to be more confident in himself. And later, he admitted that Project Roleplay gave him the confidence to follow his dreams. Now he's in university studying the immune system and talks about things that are like way over my head. I have no idea what he's saying half the time. Another one had a strained relationship with his father, and not only did it give him another chance, but he also completely mended the relationship. He also ended up deciding to go to school to be a child and youth worker. Later on, he told me that it was because of my influence that he even gave his dad a second chance. It was, seeing me as a child and youth worker that made him want to be a child and youth worker. So, like, that hits, So a shy kid finds his voice and ends up studying immunology. A fractured father-son relationship gets completely rebuilt. And it all started because of a group of boys that couldn't find a DM. Do you ever sit with how much it almost didn't happen? I mean, not really. I think more about for all of those where this hasn't happened to them yet, Project Roleplay to me is just so important. Did you know that according to Mental Health Canada, that there's about 1.2 million young people that are affected by mental health disorders in Canada? Like, that's outrageous.
That is, yeah.
And less than 20% will even receive treatment. Like, there's no programs out there. So when you think about that, how many more in the US, how many more across the world? There's just not enough programs to go around. And if Project Roleplay can fill even just a tiny gap, I have to try,
Yeah.
I'd rather spend my life trying than spend it wondering,
wonder if I could have.
Yeah, those numbers don't lie, and neither do those stories. So let's talk about the why behind them. How do TTRPGs actually connect to mental health? And I mean actually, not in a roll a d20 for serotonin kind of way. I mean, first and foremost, it's a fantastic learn through play tool. I mean, I, for one, used to be extremely shy. I mean, extremely shy. I struggled to make friends, and whenever I had to give a presentation, I could feel like the heat literally rising. Like I could feel it. I knew I was turning beet red. It was like overwhelming and terrifying every time. But playing D&D really helped me to express myself in a different way, like without any fear or any judgment. I don't know if maybe it's because that wasn't me anymore, but I have to argue that it was. I saw in an episode of ADHD 20, one of the dungeon dudes was a guest, and he said something that really hit home. He said that when we're playing TTRPGs, we're not putting on a mask and playing a character. We're actually taking off our mask.
That's so good.
And revealing who we really are. And I thoroughly believe that.
Yeah.
Because I feel more like myself when I'm role playing, when I'm playing, than anytime, grocery shopping even. Because you're always trying to fit in. You're trying to put yourself in this societal little box, to make sure that, oh, are they going to judge me? Like, are they going to like me? Like, you're always almost walking on eggshells. And, when you're a shy person, that's exacerbated like 1,000-fold. So I learned to role play in front of complete strangers. I learned to become a dungeon master and put on, all sorts of different voices and, play different characters. So like it really helped to just get me out of the box that I was trapped in, I guess is the best way to put it. Like I felt confined, and it just really, unleashed me. Yeah, and now I'm on YouTube. But that is not to say that I'm cured. No, it's still a struggle every single day, but TTRPGs definitely make it a lot easier. And there's a lot of practical, tools to the game as well. You learn to trust your party. You learn to work as a team. You learn problem solving skills, and you learn how to, solve mysteries. So like, it's not just role play either. You develop a lot of communication skills too, like how to advocate for your character and negotiate with the DM, talk your way out of a situation that combat won't solve. TTRPGs also allows you to explore themes that, that can be difficult to tackle in real life, whether you're dealing with bullying or anxiety, grief, or feeling like you just don't belong. I can create storyline to allow you to work on those things, and it makes it easier. Not only are you able to practice how to deal with these situations, but you can also see how the other players would handle those situations. And I think there's a lot of benefit to that,
It's true.
And of course, there's like the added benefit to gaining confidence, making it easier to deal with real life, that sort of thing. So you went from I couldn't speak in public to I'm on YouTube. That's not a small jump. How long did that actually take, and what did it look like in between? I mean, some might argue that being on YouTube is a lot easier than a presentation in front of 300 people. There's no audience there, there's nobody to judge you. You're just talking to a camera, it's not really the same. When you spend years as a dungeon master, though, playing in one-shots with strangers, it really gets easier over time to perform in front of an audience. Would I want to do a presentation in front of 300 people today? Ooh, gosh, no. No, thank you. I would not want to do that. But, I mean, it would be a lot easier now than it would, say, 10, 15 years ago. That would have just absolutely been impossible back then. I would also say that YouTube is a lot less about my growth personally. It's more about spreading awareness for mental health in general, the benefits of TTRPGs on mental health. I have a bi-weekly TTRPG mental health check-in series, just a series of shorts. I do comedy skits, and now the podcast. I'm sorry. The podcast? Dude, we're the same person.
Yeah, but I look more rested.
Whatever.
You mentioned being able to build storylines around what someone is struggling with. That sounds like it requires a lot of trust from the player towards you as the GM.
Yeah.
How do you build that, especially with someone who's guarded?
Well, unless a player expresses a desire to work on anything specific, there's really no need to create any specific mental health storylines for anyone. Sometimes just having fun and, playing the game is all you really need to decompress and de-stress. When it comes to shy players and those with anxiety, though, it's about making them feel comfortable. I've had a lot of new players, some very shy players. When they see me playing this ridiculous little goblin and put on this, crazy little voice, like they can't be more embarrassing than I'm being. So
That's fair.
It helps them to open up, right? And I don't feel there's really a need to build comfort, like you said. Like, how do you become comfortable with anybody? Time, right? I mean, respect and empathy, of course, help, but usually it just happens organically over time when you spend more time with somebody. So once you become more comfortable, you tend to open up more. And sometimes storylines created simply by observation. You can really learn a lot about a player just by the way they play, by the way they act, not just in the game, but outside the game as well. Like a simple, how was your week, can go a long way.
That's true.
In revealing, personal struggles they might be having. It's really just about getting to know the players and just becoming friends with them. That's really the most important thing.
That makes sense. How do you avoid accidentally triggering something they're not ready to deal with?
Well, that's easy. I mean, that's the one thing that every DM should be doing anyways. Session 0, right? It's not just about creating a character or understanding their backstory. It's about, the player themselves. Getting to know that what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with is hugely important. The moment you've crossed the line, making a person feel uncomfortable in the game, you failed as a GM. And over the course of a long campaign, I will have multiple session 0s, a re-session 0 or session re-0, a check-in session, whatever you want to call it. It's always a good idea to check in with players after a lengthy arc just to see where they're at. I had a campaign recently where we paused after the first arc, and I wanted to check in with all my players. And it turned out that one of the players was feeling very uncomfortable with their character and the direction of their story. And I was perfectly happy and willing to make any changes to the character they wanted. They could change, there's always a way to create storyline to make something work.
Yeah, of course.
Whether it's through use of magic, gods, whatever the case is, but there's always a way.
So many options,
to make storyline work, to make whatever changes you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just requires a little creativity, but I was willing to make whatever changes they want. I was even willing to replace the character altogether if they wanted a different character.
Yeah.
But they decided to push through and keep playing their character. And it turned out to be a very deep, introspective moment for that player.
Okay.
They realized a sort of duality between their character and their real life that they hadn't noticed, and realized that that's what was, causing, the feelings within them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, moments like that are great because you can really learn a lot about yourself. And, they ended up continuing to play the character, and it was a fantastic storyline, and I loved the direction it was going, and I want more storyline. I want more with this character. It's so phenomenal where it went, and hopefully one day I'll have the opportunity to, DM another storyline for that character.
But it's not therapy, just to be clear.
It's not therapy at all. It's not a replacement for therapy. While I have studied psychology, I'm not a certified therapist at all.
Right.
But I mean, we all know the benefits of, being able to vent to a friend or family member. They're not therapists, but they can help. I've been a youth leader. I've been a mentor. You know, I took care of my nephew who struggled with, you know, seizures, hallucinations, dementia, rage, and a slew of other symptoms. It wasn't fun.
We'll be getting into that in a future episode for sure.
And I bring a lot of, you know, like a lifetime worth of experiences with me. So, and if there's anything I can do to help somebody,
Right.
I want to help. And with the lack of programs out there,
15 years of experience, a background in psychology, a YouTuber, game master. What don't you do?
low-key humble brag much.
Let's talk about what you're actually building. What does success actually look like for Project Roleplay? Not the 5-year plan answer. I want the honest human answer. What does it look like when this is working?
Well, every time a player feels less stress, less anxiety, and generally feels happier after playing a game, that's a win. That is success. And the more people I can provide that to, the better, you know? I'd love to see Project Roleplay completely worldwide, you know, fighting that mental health big bad everywhere. Oof, that's the dream.
Why does TTRPGs for mental health or therapy, why does that still need defending in 2026?
I mean, does it? TTRPGs aren't for everyone, you know? I've introduced the game to a lot of new players, like I said, but, you know, it's not for everyone.
That's a good point.
I don't think I've ever had a player who didn't enjoy it, but not everyone would enjoy, you know, a break room smashing things. You know, we're all different.
That's true.
But I think the point is just having different options for people out there and having, you know, help for mental health through TTRPGs. It's another option.
Good answer. That's exactly why we're here. This podcast exists to spread awareness, one conversation at a time. 2 questions to end on. First, for someone who loves TTRPGs but has never thought about them in this way, what do you want them to walk away with?
I guess it's that learn through play has been around since the days of Freud. This is not a new concept at all, you know? So why not use it with your favorite game too, you know? Would you have learned more in school if you were taught using TTRPGs?
Oh, yeah,
I know I would have, you know, if I were playing D&D, learning, you know, like Columbus and whatever else. I didn't learn Columbus right away. I went to a Canadian school, but you know, like I would have learned it and I would have enjoyed it. That would have been a great way to teach me what actually happened. That'd be a great story to play. So like when you're using the things you love to learn, there's no better tool.
And for someone who's struggling right now, not with TTRPGs, but just in general, what do you want them to hear?
I mean, there's value in trying something different. You know, if the things that you've done so far just hasn't worked, why not try something different, something new? You know, why not give this a shot if nothing else is working?
That might be the most quietly radical thing you've said all episode.
Stop complimenting yourself, man. It's weird.
Well, thank you for being here. Not that you had a choice, but seriously, get yourself a haircut, man. You're looking rough. And that's episode 0 of the Mental Stealth Podcast. If this landed for you, stick around. There's a lot more of that where that came from. Deeper conversations about role play, mental health, creativity, and the stories that keep us moving. If you enjoyed the show at all, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Take care of yourself and look after each other. And remember, never split the party. Unless, of course, you can clone yourselves like I did. You can never have too many paladins.
You look like a Walmart Ryan George trying to be funny.
You look like a Brooklyn hipster and a medieval blacksmith had a baby and it discovered Reddit.
Your hair looks like you Googled midlife crisis and landed on a Gen Z Pinterest board.
Every morning your wife wakes up next to Gandalf the homeless.